Every path we walk holds secrets. Some are in plain sight, some are waiting to be discovered. What if, on an ordinary day, you stumbled upon something extraordinary? An unknown place, shrouded in mystery and power. Not long ago, I found such a place. Deep in the woods behind my house, an ancient well called to me. And when I touched it, everything changed. It was some kind of portal, some kind of looking glass into Aldarion. A world of light and shadow, of choices and consequences. A world that feels closer to our own than you might think. Through that well, I see it all happening now, today, as we speak. These are their stories, their destinies, and I am here to share them with you. So come with me, my friends. Join me in this journey beyond the well. A Traitor Within, Episode 1, Inheritance and Discovery. In the year 1321 of the Fifth Era, in the twilight of late autumn, Veilmoor's air hung with the sense of harvested fields and the cooling earth, an amber glow from the hearth fires dancing through the cottage windows. Eamon stood at the threshold of his grandmother's small home, his heart heavy with a sense of finality. She had called him here with urgent words that brooked no delay. He pushed the door open, the wood creaking as though it sighed with him, and stepped inside. The room was dim, lit by a single candle, flickering against the walls lined with faded tapestries. There, beneath the layers of blankets and years, lay Grandmother Mora. Her eyes, pale with age but sharp with insight, locked onto his. "You came, my boy," she rasped, her voice both a whisper and a command. She extended a trembling hand, beckoning him closer. Eamon crossed the room, each step amplifying the drum of his heartbeat. He knelt beside her, taking her fragile hand into his own. Beneath her touch was the chill of a waning life. Morris slipped her other hand beneath the folds of her blanket and produced a stone, no larger than a sparrow's egg. At first glance it seemed unremarkable, smooth and gray like any pebble found on the riverbanks, yet as it caught the candlelight, a subtle shimmer traced along its surface, suggesting a depth beyond its appearance. "This," said Mora, her eyes unblinking, "is more than a stone. It is the heart of our line. It connects you to the Nexus, a place of insight and power if you learn to listen." Eamon initially recoiled at the word. He had heard such fairy tales, and the children in the village often laughed and joked and made believe of the Nexus. But she pressed the stone into his palm, and for a fleeting moment he felt a bloom of warmth. "Respect it, Eamon. Trust it as you would yourself, and never flaunt its gift. Only those who have earned your deepest trust may ever know of it." "It is my wish." Eamon nodded, his throat tight. "Grandmother, why?" Mora's gaze softened. "Because, child, you are loyal even when it costs you. The stone chooses who cherishes the strength unseen. I choose you." The first few days following Mora's passing were a blur of duties and half-hearted condolences. Eamon busied himself with chores around the village and spent evenings with his family, yet every spare moment was a reminder of the stone hidden in his pocket, cool and inert. He would often sit by the window at night, turning it over in his hands, hoping to feel something, a pulse of warmth, a whisper, anything to prove his grandmother's words were more than just the ramblings of a dying woman. But the stone remained silent. Restless, Eamon took to visiting places his grandmother had cherished, the old oak by the stream where she would weave wildflowers into crowns, the market stalls where she had haggled fiercely, and the small temple where she had often leave offerings of honey and grain. He carried the stone with him always, of course, hoping that These familiar words or haunts would awaken something, but he wasn't so sure these days. And yet, day after day, it just remained a stone. Then, a few weeks later, midweek, while Eamon helped repair a neighbor's fence at the edge of Emberwood, the first flicker of change occurred. As he worked, sweat dribbled down his brow. A faint sensation prickled at the back of his mind, a twinge of awareness, as if he were being watched. He paused, scanning the woods, but only saw shifting shadows among the trees, and the feeling passed, leaving him unsettled but intrigued. That night, as he sat by his window with the stone in his palm, he closed his eyes and let his mind wander. He focused on the memory of the woods and on the sensation that had stirred him for those moments. But nothing happened. Then, like the distant rustle of leaves, a whisper, too faint to understand, brushed against his consciousness. His eyes flew open, breath catching. The stone was no longer just a weight in his hand. He felt like there was a presence. The days that followed were marked by cautious experimentation. Eamon would slip away to quiet places, an abandoned barn, a rocky outcropping by the stream, and sit in silence with a stone. He learned to empty his mind, to let the whispers come and go like the wind. At first, they were just mere impressions, a tug toward one path instead of another, a sense of caution when strangers passed by. But with each passing day, the connection grew. He began to catch words amid whispers, fragments of guidance, echoes of caution, and glimpses of meaning that seemed both ancient and deeply personal. One evening, Eamon returned from the market with supplies when he crossed paths with Constable Aldarion, a tall, broad-shouldered man who greeted him warmly. His blue eyes crinkled beneath the mane of salt-and-peppered hair. Aldarion had been a mentor to Eamon ever since his childhood, a steady hand who dispensed justice and fairness with wisdom. They spoke briefly of village matters and the approaching winter, and Eamon felt the weight of the secret growing heavier. "Is all well with you?" Aldarion asked, his tone more paternal than inquisitive. Of course," Eamon replied, shifting uneasily and thinking of the stone and having a desire to share this with somebody. But his promise to his grandmother came back to him, and he replied, Just busy times." "Indeed, Veilmoor is lucky to have you, Eamon. Stay strong. We need strong young men like you." Aldarion clapped him on the shoulder, a gesture that once brought comfort, but now seemed to press down on him with the weight of this stone on his mind. As days turned into a week, the stone's whispers became more insistent, pulling Eamon towards something he knew was there but just couldn't see. That night, sleep eluded Eamon. He sat by his window, the stone resting in his palm, its surface cool and unyielding. He closed his eyes, willing himself to listen, to feel anything beyond its physical form. Hours passed. The silence broke only by the distant howl of wolves and the whispering wind. Then faintly, a sensation, like the rustle of leaves or the sigh of a breath. It wasn't words, but meaning took form nonetheless. He felt a nudge, a pull, as though the stone wanted him to rise. Reluctantly, Eamon stood, his movements cautious, and let the whispers guide him. He slipped out of his home, the night air biting through his cloak, and found himself wandering towards the Emberwood. The stone's pull grew stronger, leading him deeper into shadowed paths where few dared tread, especially at night. Every step was accompanied by a sense of heightened awareness, the snap of twigs, the rustle of leaves, even the distant hum of insects felt amplified. At last, he came upon a clearing where the scent of damp earth mingled with wood smoke. Peering through the underbrush, he saw figures off in the distance. Dozens of them, their faces hidden beneath cowls. They spoke in hushed tones, but the stone's whispers heightened his senses, translating fragments of their conversation. They spoke of a raid on Veilmoor, of fire and chaos. They spoke of taking what they wished and vanishing before dawn's light. Eamon's breath caught. Their plan was precise, their intent ruthless. He scanned the gathering, his heart hammering. Then, a tall figure stepped into the light of the flickering campfire. His hood slipped back to reveal the familiar face of Constable Aldarion. The stone's whisperings fell silent, leaving only the thunder of Eamon's disbelief. The man he had trusted, the man who had stood as a pillar of justice, was orchestrating the downfall of Veilmoor. Rage and sorrow warred within him, but he knew he couldn't act yet. If Aldarion sensed he was discovered, the town would suffer. Eamon would have to protect Veilmoor alone, shrouded in secrecy and shadows. With the stone's whisperings nudging him back into the cover of darkness, Eamon slipped away, his mind racing with plans and possibilities. Betrayal seared his heart, but he would not falter. The stone had chosen him for a reason, and he would see Veilmoor safe, even if it meant bearing his burden in silence. Back in the safety of his home, Eamon sat with the stone, its whisperings guiding him towards clarity. He would need to act, but he would need to do so from the shadows, unseen and unknown. The bond with the stone would be his only ally in the days to come. Thank you for joining me today as we look beyond the well. What lies ahead is not just a tale, it's a journey, one that we will take together. If you're ready to step further into Aldarion, subscribe and follow Beyond the Well wherever you listen to podcasts. For even more information, visit beyondthewell.net for transcripts, notes, character descriptions, maps, and much more. And remember, sometimes the path we walk reveals more than we ever imagined. So, keep seeking, keep dreaming, and keep telling your story.